I was also struck by the fact that the left hemisphere seems to specialise, excuse me, seems to specialise in anger and irritability and wanting to everything in its place and sort of confining things and separating things and that kind of thing. And anger certainly is seems to correlate with narrow expectations of how things should be. You're expecting something to be this way.
Yes.
Not all the other ways, and you're disappointed or you're upset or you're angry when it doesn't come to pass in that way. So expectations seem to be very important.
That's true. One way of thinking about the left hemisphere is the driver of our conscious will to act on the world. And so it can easily experience being frustrated or angry. One of the important differences, again, between the two hemispheres is that the right hemisphere tends to be more flexible. It finds it easier to see another viewpoint than the one it's holding at the moment. The left hemisphere finds that very hard. It finds it's hard to put itself in the shoes, if you like, of the other person. And much harder to change set. In other words, to be flexible and think, yes, that worked for the last thing I did, but it's not going to work for the next thing I'm about to do. And I call that stickiness because the left hemisphere literally has stickier attention in the sense that once it's locked onto a target, it finds it harder to disengage than the right hemisphere attention. It finds it harder to shift a mental set that it's using and tends to stay with the one that it's got. And it may sound like I'm talking purely figuratively, but when people have a right hemisphere stroke, not only is their attention narrowed very much because it's this view of a small arc of the visual field and the attentional field in great detail, not seeing the rest, but it also gets stickier and remains on target longer than the right hemisphere.
So is there an aspect of obsessionality?
I wouldn't go that far because obsessionality brings to my mind the personality of somebody who has tendencies towards OCD, and as far as I know there isn't much lateralization involved in OCD. Some suggestions that it is more left than right, but I think it's definitely one of those things about which one wouldn't want to be dogmatic.
And I suppose, if you are angry about something, then you tend to not be able to withdraw your attention that easily. If it's an ongoing situation.
That's true. That's true.
You can be very angry about the neighbours or whatever it is, and not be able to think about much else for a lot of the time.
That's possibly true.
And also this other aspect of anger, whereby your attention is focused narrowly, and you miss the bigger picture. I had a client come and see me for anger problems, and she was quite demure, in the way she presented. But she told me about a time that she'd been in a shopping mall. That was why she was angry, and she'd become enraged with her boyfriend in this shopping mall and began screaming at him. And then eventually, when she calmed down a little bit, she was mortified to see that a crowd had gathered around her, and she hadn't seen them before. So it was very much the way you describe the bird pecking at a seed and needing this peripheral vision as well. But in that instance, she was just pecking at the seed and she wasn't seeing the bigger picture until afterwards, until she sort of calmed down. So, to me, it does. It never struck me before that it was, sort of right hemispheric deficit state, if you like, that we can go into, and we probably all experienced that as well. I think,
Yes, I think that
losing context
in such a situation, the left hemisphere is to some extent, at least emotionally, in overdrive. Nothing, of course, that I say is absolute.
No.
Both hemispheres are always involved in
Yes.
everything. But it is a fairly good generalization that the most strongly lateralized emotion is anger, and it lateralizes to the left hemisphere. So the left hemisphere is not at all this down-to-earth, keep calm, carry on figure. But a lot of people do report that when they're angry, their vision and their attention is enormously narrowed, and it's only later that they realise that other people are watching and listening. So I think that's right.